at least every team in the NFC North lost? Basement buddies. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got beat 38-3 in week 1 by the Saints last year, and they won the Super Bowl, so hopefully the Packers could do the same. Grossi. And today we're going to be talking about how the Green Bay Packers got their asses kicked on America's Game of the Week, losing 38-3 to the New Orleans Saints. Before we get to that, I want to do a big shout and thank you to some brand new patrons and YouTube members. First, we have Nate Payne 711. We have David Pierce. We have Florida Gunner. We have John Bokovac. And we have Ladies Just Saying. When Tom is ready, you could date a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. Line starts nowhere. And Alex Bishop, a big shout and thank you to you all. And over on the YouTube side of things, we have Robert Hanlon, we have Wannabe Comedy, and we have Itabon25. A big shout out and thank you to you all. So yes, the Green Bay Packers, after all the hype heading into the season about it being the last dance, and about how everyone was so focused and how Aaron Rodgers was talking about there's not really any pressure, it's just this focus, and Devontae Adams is referring to it as a hunger, came out and played like absolute garbage. Defense, bad. Offense, bad. Everything, bad. However, new punter Corey Bojorquez, not too bad. But let's take a look here. Rodgers going 15 for 28, 133 yards, and 2 interceptions. At one point, they even threw in Jordan Love, who went 5 for 7 for 68 yards and also had a fumble. And then the run game, my friends, was non-existent. A.J. Dillon, the leading rusher, 4 for 19 yards. Kylan Hill, 5 for 14, and Aaron Jones, 5 for 9. All terrible on the day. And then receiving, not much better. You had Randall Cobb, who had 1 catch for 32 yards, and that was from Jordan Love. And then the biggest producer was Devontae Adams, 5 for 56 yards. And to just talk about where this game went wrong, I want to put how crappily the Packers played aside, and I want to give all the props to Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints and the game plan, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because they played fracking good football, and they deserve all the praise and credit here, because this isn't a game that like, oh God, the Packers were so bad. The Saints were really, really good, in which they controlled the time of possession, they ran all over the Packers, and Jameis Winston threw 5 freaking touchdowns and didn't even eclipse 150 yards. They were efficient. And speaking of those stats, Winston, 14 for 20, 148 yards, 5 TDs, ran 6 times for 37 yards. Some of those were back-breaking runs. You had Kamara running 20 times for 83 yards, had 3 receptions for 8 yards and a touchdown. Tony Jones ran for 50 yards as well. And Juwan Johnson, 3 receptions, 21 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They didn't really have to go to the air a whole lot, but when they did, boy, oh boy, were they efficient, because they just could do it with their run game, because they basically were challenging Joe Barry and said, hey, stop the run. Oh, you're not going to? Okay, well, we're going to continue to do this. And when you do, and we're going to go out to pass, Jameis Winston can find those running lanes. And so the Saints came in with a game plan and they executed it incredibly well. And I don't want to take anything away from the Saints because they deserve all of that praise. And looking at the Packers, where do you begin? They asked Aaron Rodgers, what do you take away from this game in terms of good things? And he's like, I don't know if you can take any good stuff away from this. The offensive line played for the most part pretty well without David Bakhtiari. For the most part, Aaron Rodgers had a pretty clean pocket. He got hit a couple of times, but that was pretty good. But our run game, as we talked about, was non-existent. We couldn't really get anything going in the passing game. We only had 3 possessions in the entire first half of football, and it looked like we were getting something going at the end of the half. And we're like, okay, we're going to do well coming out of halftime. We get the ball again. We drove down the field and then threw a costly interception. Rodgers definitely didn't play well today. He overthrew targets and just didn't get in sync with the rest of the offense. And the defense, they played a lot of off coverage garbage again, which I thought was going to be a non-issue after Mike Pettin left, but it seems it was. Then at times they went to press coverage and it worked a little bit better, shockingly. But yeah, it was just confusing as a whole. And I think that there's a lot of disappointment that's going on amongst Packer fans because all of this hype about the last dance, and this is the performance they put on the field. However, I will say, good God, the overreactions today have been insane. Even for Packers Twitter, it's been insane. My DMs, checking it after the game, were just a horrid dumpster fire. And people accusing Aaron of tanking the season, which just doesn't make any sense, folks. You're talking about, oh, this is because they didn't get any preseason snaps. Do you know how many times I heard that we didn't? It's because they didn't play any preseason. Folks, they didn't play any preseason last year, and they came out swinging. That ain't it. And just because you play a little bit in preseason doesn't mean that you're ready for this. Because the Packers, I don't think, regardless of how many snaps they played in the preseason, would have translated to a better game here. So that ain't it. People are talking about trading people already. People are talking about firing Joe Barry, and he just had one game. I think we just need to have a tiny bit of context here. And what that context is, quite simply, is the Green Bay Packers showed up week 1 and got their asses handed to them. But the key words there is that it's week 1. Week 1. There are 18 weeks in the regular season this year. 17 games. This is 1. We're 0-1. And guess what? Everybody in our division lost today. Everyone in the West, in the NFC West, won today. Oh man, they're looking great. But everyone in the North, they lost today. The Lions, they came back against the 49ers, right? They almost pulled off an upset there. Vikings lost in overtime to the Bengals. And then the Bears, they got their asses handed to them by the Rams on Sunday Night Football. So I'm not trying to make excuses or anything, but what I'm saying is let's have a little bit of context here. People saying Aaron Rodgers is washed or Joe Barry is god-awful or this, that, and the other thing. No, it's week 1. And I'm not trying to make a comparison saying, oh my God, we're going to the Super Bowl because of this. But like you look at the Buccaneers last year, they lost 38-3 against the Saints. And yes, they had Drew Brees and all this, but I don't even care. It's just that the week 1 team that you saw today is not going to be the same a few weeks from now. It's not going to. And if it is, then this will be a very different conversation. We'll talk about where the Packers are doing things wrong and now it's time to panic, what have you. But week 1, it ain't the time to panic, folks. The Texans look good today. The Texans. All right, let's pump the brakes a little bit. So the Packers got the crap kicked out of them by the New Orleans Saints today. And now it's on to Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions. That's the focus. Hopefully we dust ourselves off because we do not have an easy schedule. We have some rough games coming up. You have the 49ers. You have the Steelers coming up. And so hopefully this is a fluke. Hopefully this is just trying to get back to the way they were last year in which they were so good. They were the number 1 scoring offense. And today they put out a dud and they scored 3 points. So hopefully we'll have a change of narrative next week. But until then, relax. It's week 1. It isn't time to panic just yet. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How did you feel about this game? Is there anything you could take away from this besides the offensive line performing admirably? Let me know. You know, find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all social media. See down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.